Everybody, welcome back to Cycle News. Another new test for you today. This is a good one. This is the 2023 Ducati Streetfighter V4 S. Now, we just got back from the Andalusia circuit in Spain to go and ride this brand new bike. Well, it's not brand new, it's revised. It's still fairly close to what it was back in 2020. Man, it is an immense motorcycle. I got to say that like straight off the bat. And I'm sorry, I got to say also, I'm sorry if this is just going to sound like a glowing review. I can't bullcrap to you guys. Like, it's just an awesome bike. There are very, very few things I didn't like about it. Starts at $27,995. So one thing I don't like about it is I'll never be able to afford one out here in the United States. I don't know what it's going to cost anywhere else in the world. Check your local guys for local programming right there. But 208 horsepower out of a naked bike. 208 horsepower, and it's 434 pounds with a tank of fuel. I mean, what? I hadn't ridden the Streetfighter, I gotta be honest, I hadn't ridden the Streetfighter 2.5 years was the last time I got on one. It left a big impression on me back then. It wasn't one of those bikes that you forget very easily. But man, like, it's just, there's so much motorcycle with a Streetfighter. Now, when you're talking super nakeds, can't be remiss if we didn't mention the competition. Super nakeds, basically for me now, it's a Streetfighter, it's a Aprilia Tuono V4 factory. It is the M1000RR or the S1000RR, or sorry, M1000R, take one R off, and S1000R, not the superbikes. KTM Super Duke, 1290 Super Duke, for example. Those are your super nakeds. Then you can take a step sideways and you can start going into things like your MT10 Yamahas and GSX and Suzukis and that kind of stuff. They are not in the same ballpark as what these things are. They're just not. They are, like, this thing at 208 horsepower is very, very difficult to hang on to at high speeds because it is so quick. It's a very rangy bike, it's an incredibly comfortable bike, but there is just so much performance on offer with this bike. I mean, it is a naked Panigale. Let's not beat around the bush here. Like, it takes the same engine, the 1103cc V4 Desmo Stradale V4 engine that first saw light, the first light of day back in 2018 with the first V4 S Panigale. It's got the same front frame design that the Panigale's got. It's got Panigale derived winglets that give you a bunch of downforce at high speed. Looks like a Panigale with no fairing. That's because it is. The big difference is it's got high handlebars and it's got a much thicker seat, which is incredibly comfortable. 60mm seat. I think the Panigale is like 30. So you feel like you're sitting on a couch almost until you open the throttle, and then it's a whole nother story. So in creating the 2023 Ducati Streetfighter V4 S. The main difference with the chassis is that it's got a 4mm higher swing arm pivot point. That's basically to increase the anti-squat capabilities of the chassis so it maintains its composure under initial acceleration and when all the power is put onto the rear tire. The Olin Smart EC 2.0 electronic suspension is still the same with the NIX 30 fork and the TTX 36 shock. It's the event-based suspension that we've ridden on many, many times, and the Brembo Stylema 4-piston brake calipers are the same as well. Engine is basically the same. You get a new clutch cover. Okay, whoop-de-doo. You get a new clutch cover. Everything else really is centered around the rider electronics. So first thing is you get a different power. You get two new power modes. You get a revised wet power mode, which takes things up to 165 horsepower and a much smoother throttle response. And on the other scale, other end of the scale, you get the new full power mode. So that's more than high power mode. But this is where the electronics comes in. So previously, Ducati would do torque metering in gear sets. What they used to do is they would get gears 1 and 2, gear 3 and 4, gear 5 and 6, and obviously with gear 1 and 2, where you get the biggest, the hardest hit of torque, that would be the most metering that the ECU. It would pull the torque back a bit so it didn't just snap sideways, and then you're leaned right into the traction control, into the wheelie control. You want the electronics to work. You don't want them to be intrusive. So moving forward to this year, what Ducati's done, instead of doing the gear sets, as in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, they've changed it to individual gears: 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and 6. So if you have a look on this graph here, it is it will give you, obviously you can see now in gear 1. Gear 1 is, you get that big red line there. That gives you the idea of how much torque is getting pulled back. And then as you go up to 6th gear, it gradually gets less and less and less. So it's a safety measure. It's a performance measure as well, let's be honest, because you're trying to get as much usable torque down to the ground as possible. You get too much, you're going to spin up, you're going to hit into the Ducati traction control. It's just, you're not going to have a good time. The other thing that Ducati's done is give you the same dash now that is in the Panigale that was previously in the Superleggera. So when the Superleggera came out in 2020, it had we called it the Dovi dash for the great Andrea Dovizioso. He's the one that coined this dash. He liked having his gear position right smack bang in the middle of his MotoGP machine and all the parameters on the side. So his wheelie control, his traction control. I have no idea what else they have on MotoGP bikes. They don't tell us. So, yeah, so at least then it's very easy to see. And when they do, and when you hit into those systems at speed, they light up very quickly and light up quite easily as well. Because you only got 4 things on the side. Like if you've ever seen some of the other dashes that are out there at the moment, particularly something like a CBR 1000 dash, it's just, yeah, it's impossible. It's very difficult to understand really what's going on. With the Ducati system, it's very easy to understand. It's, there's your gear position. You've got your speed up on the top, and this is on your race mode, by the way. You can change this so that you've got different dash settings. We spent the majority of our time in the race mode because we were on the track. So you can change it back to like a regular dash that you would normally use in your everyday life. But when you're riding on the track and you see those things light up pretty easily, it's really good for the rider. You know what system is working. And that also gives you an idea of like, okay, cool, I'm smashing into the traction control a little bit too much. I'm going to pull that back. Oh, I'm hitting the wheelie control a bit too much. I'm going to pull that back. Sounds obvious, but when you're at speed and you're trying to, your brain's trying to stay in the moment, having little cues like that really help the rider. So, and the other good thing too is that you can adjust them all at speed now. Like you don't have to stop and change your traction control. You don't have to stop and change your wheelie control. So you can just keep on doing it. So the other thing you have to do is if you want to switch it off, you do have to stop. So they ask you, do you want to switch this off? Which you want to make sure that your ambition doesn't outweigh your talent with that one, because 208 horsepower with very little electronics that's a very spicy meatball, I can tell you that. Other little things that Ducati has done for 2023 is they've changed the gas tank design. So you actually get 0.26 gallons more, which is brilliant because that thing drinks fuel like you wouldn't believe. They've also changed the shape of the tank so that you can grip it better with your knees. Now, if you've ever ridden any of the old Ducatis, I'm talking older Ducatis, 999s, 916s, 1098s, things like that, the tank sort of was straight with your legs, and then it was almost like 90 degrees. So the tank was not easy to grip. At least for me it wasn't, and I know a lot of other riders found it quite difficult to grip. Obviously over the years the tank gradually changed shape to become much more of almost a Japanese style tank, and now it's even further like that. They've also got little indents at the top of the tank, so allows you to lock your legs in a little bit better. If I was a owner of this bike, the very first thing I'd do, even though it would look terrible, is I would get some of that seat gripper stuff. Kind of need that for that kind of thing, but that's because it has like a matte finish on that paint, which is just magic. That paint, it is so pretty. So look, honestly, the thing I don't like about it, I'm going to bitch about it again. No cruise control, no heated grips. Come on guys, it's a $28,000 bike, and if you throw the exhaust at it, you're not going to get much change out of 40 grand. So I think it's about $1,000 or $2,000, you might say, but you're basically going to just wave goodbye to 40 G's once you've put all the labor and everything into it to fit it up. So, but look, you got to look at these bikes, especially a Streetfighter, as an object of desire. I know that sounds a bit corny and a bit lame, but it really is. This is the absolute top end of performance now with performance naked biking, or not even performance naked biking, just performance motorcycles. If you want to be faster, you probably will go faster on something without as much horsepower, let's be honest, because they are a little bit more docile and a bit more forgiving. This thing is quite hard work. It is not easy to ride at speed. There's no wind protection whatsoever. Like, everybody after the first couple of sessions in Spain came back with arm pump. And once you sort of got used to it and you're like, okay, cool, it's gonna be ridden this way, all right, we're good. But it's just an immense motorcycle. I can't comment on its street performance on the 2023 edition because we didn't ride it there. Although, having said that, I have ridden them plenty of times on the street, and this one's not that different to the old one, and I really enjoyed it. You know, it does slow speed just as well as it does high speed, which is quite a trick Ducati's pulled. Especially now that you've got so many electronics, you can just tailor everything how you want. Like, you'll be there for days trying to figure out the settings that you want. But overall, man, it's an incredible bike. I came away from that just going, man, I'm not good. I can't ride motorbikes. Like, that thing is so far in front of what I can pull on a motorbike nowadays. It's just, anyway, I guess it's good that those bikes exist. Plus the fact that it has so many different modes, you can tailor to a point where you really can ride it. But yeah, anyway, sorry if it's a bit of a love fest on that one, guys, but I'm sorry, I just don't have anything really bad to say about it, not gonna be honest. So anyway, hope you enjoyed it, and we'll check back in with another one soon. Cheers, guys. See ya.